Hi, my name is Tammy, and I'm 23 years old. I'm a staff member at KCW, which is in Westchester, and we just had our retreat that was led by Pastor Sam, and he wanted to have some of the people share their testimonies or their experiences, so I guess I'll share mine. So I recently came back from a trip from Cambodia. So after I graduated college, I spent a year in the capital city of Cambodia where I was a missionary and also a professor at a startup art institute. And it was a really interesting experience. So that was my first time um, being by myself abroad for a whole year. And the first couple of months, it was actually very difficult being there for me spiritually and also like emotionally. And I felt very attacked um, by a lot of different things. But I always tried to remember that God was there protecting me. And the problem was um, I went through a lot of hardships in Cambodia that kind of came back with me when I returned to America. And I guess I didn't really understand the magnitude of the emotional hardships that it left on me. So when I was listening to a lot of Pastor Sam's sermons this retreat, he kept praying for me. Um, and I guess one of them that really stuck to me was his last sermon, which was talking about heavenly perspective versus earthly perspective. And I was actually talking to my small group, which is a couple of middle school kids. I was talking to them about it. And I guess what it's really easy for us as humans, even as Christians, to think about the limitations we have, such as, it's easy for us to get sick. It's easy for us to be scared of death or even just uncertainties with our future. And since I graduated and right now I'm kind of going through a transitional phase, I definitely understand the fear that we have with that. But Pastor Sam kind of encouraged me and reminded me that as Christians, we don't need to live by our earthly perspective because um, when we look at the way Christ looks at our time on earth, those kinds of things don't matter as much anymore. In fact, they don't matter at all. So Christ wasn't bound by death. He wasn't bound by sin and all the things that we're so afraid of, things that shackle us. And I guess just thinking about that made me realize that perspective really does make a big difference with how you act and how you think. And my time in Cambodia, I think I had the wrong perspective. And I was focusing too much on my own, like, discomfort and, the sacrifices that I was making. And I feel like if my perspective then was different and I was focusing more on the heavenly goal, the more important and infinite goal, then my time there would have been like it would have been a big blessing for me. So I think my testimony and just my overall experience in Cambodia has made me realize, how tiny I am in this world and how good God is and that he he gave me so many things that I take for granted sometimes or that I look at it as a bad experience but don't really understand the magnitude of it, how it is until much later. So I encourage everyone who's listening to this testimony to really think about all that you've been given. And you don't need to go on a mission trip to Nicaragua or somewhere far away to understand all that you have. It really is a blessing to be back in America and just to really reflect on God's grace. So as we move into 2015, I just want you all to be blessed by this message.